Use your powers for evil.
Your evil is mine.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Next Stop Everywhere, a podcast all about a madman in a blue box, Doctor Who. I am Jesse Jackson, and joining me today as we talk about what might be a pretty good little episode is my friend Charles Skaggs.
Hi,
Hey,
Jesse. How are you?
I am good. As those of you who've been following along know that this is the week we are going to talk about Neil Gaiman's The Doctor's Wife.
Yay!
It is I do not know how many times I've watched this episode. It is more than I can count, and I rewatched it again today, and I just got caught up into the magic and the beauty, and it is truly just something special. How about you, Charles?
Spoilers, we really like this episode.
Yeah.
This is as I posted this on Twitter yesterday after watching it again last night with my wife Rory, and it's been 4 years already since this episode debuted, and it's still as magical as ever. It holds up beautifully, even after this. I mean, 4 years isn't a great deal of time, but compared to some other things, but it just holds up so well. The dialogue just sings everything. There's a lot going on, and there's all these strange elements because Neil Gaiman introduces. It really brings out the fantasy in this episode. It's very much the fairy tale that Stephen Moffat loves. So, there's some things that you wouldn't think would work, but they work really well, and it just comes together beautifully.
One of the things that people have talked about is that, every actor who plays Hamlet or another Shakespeare lead brings their own version to it. If I had all the money in the world...
You don't have all the money in the world?
No.
What's wrong with you?
But if there was a magical place, wouldn't you love to see other actors do this role? I mean, just and nothing against Matt Smith. I love Matt Smith. I love the character. But this is such a... This could be any era. It could be any doctor with any companion, except for the few, I killed all the Time Lords. But with those changes, and it would be interesting to see,
like say David Tennant in this role,
Tennant.
or in this episode, or
Yeah.
I think just about any of the doctors could do this episode justice.
It would be amazing, like, to see, Colin Baker in his prime do this kind of, because there is something just timeless of the Doctor and his TARDIS. Amy talks at the end, it's always been you two. And long after we're gone, it's going to be you two exploring the world. And there is such a love there and such a recognition that the TARDIS is more than just a time machine, spaceship, the Doctor's home. It is truly his, pardon the pun, companion. And to capture that so well, and we are talking about Neil Gaiman, who, if you can name an award, literary award, he's won it, right?
Pretty much.
This is not, a slouch writing, but it is just something amazing.
And this episode also won some awards. It won the 2012 Hugo Award for, what is it here, the Best Dramatic Presentation Short Form, and then also won the 2011 Bradbury Award for Outstanding Dramatic Presentation. So it's not just, once again, it's Neil getting awards and acclaim for being Neil Gaiman, which is just what we wanted. Everything we want. This episode, when Neil Gaiman's name was first mentioned as writing for Doctor Who, I mean, there was no way that you can imagine that Neil would have come up with this as a story idea, but it's everything you wanted, and you didn't even know it from
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're sitting there just going, not sure what you're going to do. The doctor's wife, kind of a misleading title, which they did a lot.
Yeah.
They still do, but especially during Matt Smith's
Yeah.
era, they like to mislead us, and it is just wonderful.
Well, I think the TARDIS is more of his wife than River Song could ever hope to be.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
she's the TARDIS is the one he's been the most faithful toward.
Yes.
I mean, it's always, she and him.
Mhm.
It's the Doctor and sexy.
Yes. I think the only thing we missed is having Hugh Laurie do the voice. That is
Of House.
of
Yeah,
House. It just
isn't that a little too meta though?
no, that would have been awesome.
I think Michael Sheen did a really good job.
Michael Sheen was amazing in it. There is the Suranne Jones as Idris is just
Perfection.
amazing. Yeah, it is. There truly is. I would find hard any nitpicking about the episode.
Right.
There is a lot. So why don't we kind of go through and kind of talk about it a little bit and
Sounds
go
good.
through? Yeah.
You wanna run it down, or you want me to run it down?
I'll let you take lead.
Okay.
You always have the better notes.
Well, yes, but our friend Karen has picked on me so much about my notes, but
yes.
all right.
Hey, Charles, you should take
Yeah.
a picture of kind of your notes and
I
post it
have.
on our Facebook page. Have you posted?
Well, Karen did. We did one, and we posted it on the Fandom Zone.
Okay, so yes. So
Yeah, but it's up there. But
okay, good deal. All right, we'll check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got basically we start off on a strange junkyard planet, and where you see an Ood named Nephew draining the mind of a young woman named Idris. And then we cut, it's you're not quite sure what's going on just yet. But then we switch to the TARDIS, which is traveling through deep space. When all of a sudden there's a knock on the door, and which it does. It does the
It
shaking
does
her
the
tattoo
knocking.
bits.
Yeah, and everyone looked like, aren't we in deep space?
Yeah, so the Doctor opens up the door, and in flies a glowing white psychic container. Now, this is a cube that we haven't seen since 1969 in the episode in the story The War Games, which was Patrick Troughton's last story.
So I was going to ask you, did you recognize that right away, or did you have to go research? The first time.
I was waiting for the explanation. Once he said it was a psychic container, I'm like, oh yeah, it's the same thing as the War Games.
Okay.
But Neil has expressed his fondness for the Troughton era, so I figured it was just something that he wanted to bring back.
Okay.
And it was kind of cool that, like, of all the things to bring back, and it's kind of a cool idea that the idea that Time Lords can create these psychic containers to send messages from deep space or whatever. Because in the War Games, the Doctor creates this psychic container to send a message to the Time Lords to bring them to deal with this situation with this rogue Time Lord called the War Chief.
Okay.
And that ends up resulting in the Doctor allowing himself to be put on trial. He tries to escape, but they've got him, so he kind of like forfeits his freedom. And that's what they force him through a regeneration, and that's what starts his exile on Earth as the Third Doctor, John Pertwee.
Okay.
So, this psychic container, and it's kind of funny because I love the line that the Doctor is like, "I've got mail."
Yes. Very, very cool.
And only Matt, with his boyish exuberance, could pull off that one sense of wonder.
Absolutely.
Now, this particular container, though, it's got an Ouroboros, which is the symbol of a snake devouring itself, that apparently turns out to belong to a Time Lord the Doctor knew back in the day called the Corsair.
Yes.
And it also introduces that concept of that Time Lords can switch genders, because the Doctor mentions that the Corsair was a bad girl here a couple times.
And we do know that this Doctor likes a bad girl.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he does.
Yes.
Well, because he's the renegade, the rebel.
Yes,
So
indeed.
resisting authority. So of course he's going to be drawn to bad girls.
Mm-hmm.
The TARDIS, or the Doctor sets the controls to follow the signal back to this junkyard planet, which is outside the known universe. And in the process of leaving the known universe and crossing this rift, powers just completely drain from the TARDIS, and the soul of the TARDIS vanishes and goes somewhere. So the question is where, and we find out that it enters Idris, who is essentially a hollowed out vessel.
Yes.
So we know that the TARDIS has become taken on human form now,
mm-hmm.
which is obviously proves to be very, very interesting.
Yes, it is. I was a little confused the first time I watched it. It's only after seeing it, as I said countless times, you see what's happening.
Right.
And so I love that we do get that, and we get the whole confusion of the TARDIS isn't used to speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And words are confusing, because it's used to, and we get a payoff from that too at the end of the episode, in thoughts and feelings and stuff. And the confusion of the words is part of the charm of this episode, I think.
Right. And Idris speaks in not just, confusing the words, but she also confuses the tenses of words. Because, she exists outside of time in the sense that, okay, something, she's talking about some future event that hasn't happened yet.
Right. And in her mind, it's the TARDIS sees it all as the same thing.
Right. It's all past, present, and future are all intertwined.
Right.
Which makes perfect sense for a time machine that can go anywhere, anytime.
Yes, it does.
The TARDIS, without, materializes on this junkyard, which I have to think is a reference to an unearthly child, the very first Doctor Who episode, which started off in a junkyard. I have to think that was Neil's sly little nod to the past, one of many that are in this episode.
Absolutely. And also a true example of Chekhov's gun, where we think we're just in the junkyard, and we think this just may be a reference to the early episodes, but there's a payoff to that as well, isn't there, Charles?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
Which we will find out later on. But yeah, because it's important to notice that what this junkyard is made of.
Yes.
And absolutely. Which comes into play. The Doctor, Amy, and Rory leave the TARDIS, and they meet up with or encounter Auntie, Uncle, Nephew, and Idris.
Yes.
And Auntie and Uncle are very odd people that seem to have, just like mismatched hands and feet and body parts that they look kind of stitched together a little bit.
Now, we would have thought that Idris would have been Denise, because we had the nephew.
Right. Very funny.
Thank you.
He'll be here all week.
Yes, indeed.
Be sure to tip the waitress.
Yeah. There is so much beautiful dialogue in this. I don't know, but just for fun, if you do quotes, Doctor Who quotes, this page, no matter what website you go to, is longer than almost any other web page.
Oh yeah,
because there is so much beautiful dialogue.
Right. I know every episode that we do, we try to do like our favorite quotes of the episode.
Right.
There's so much to choose from this time.
Yeah, there is going to be that is going to be tough for us to come down with a one.
If you can't find a line that you like from this episode, there's something seriously wrong with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we got Idris meeting the Doctor for the first time So what does she do? She tries to bite him. And
Yes, she does.
she makes a comment about like biting being more fun than kissing, or more exciting, interesting.
Yeah.
The doctor, he sees nephew and he's like, "Ooh, an ood! I love an ood." And and Amy and Roy are like, because they've never met a nude. We have, the
Yes.
audience, by now, but they have never met a nude, so they're a little freaked out by this little spaghetti beard.
And and Charles, do you have a theory on why he says he loves an ood? Because I don't know of that many. I mean, I just keep thinking of Tenet's,
Yeah.
final thing with the
Right.
ood, your song is almost past, thing. So it just doesn't look like there would be a strong relationship with, ood, one of my favorite aliens.
Well, remember on Planet of the Ood with
Hmm.
the 10th Doctor and Donna,
Yes.
where they kind of liberate the Ood.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay.
So, it's not like they're evil,
No.
but this one is kind of controlled by evil.
Yes, indeed.
The Doctor repairs nephew's translator sphere. I'm not sure what it's called, but I think we'll just call it translator sphere. Um, but instead of the Ood really talking, it plays a message, a recording that turns out to be a message from a stranded Time Lord. A distress call. Now, back in the day, after watching this episode, there was so much speculation that that distress call belonged to Paul McGann's Eighth Doctor, because the voice is eerily similar to Paul McGann's.
Mm.
So there was at the time, there was no hint that we would ever see the Night of the Doctor and Paul McGann returning ever. So
Right.
there was always this fun, this great hope that, oh my God, is Moffat setting something up, and wouldn't it be cool if like the reason we haven't seen the Eighth Doctor was that he was stranded on this planet or something, or somewhere else. He's lost out there in the universe, and the Doctor has to go and find him. But alas, that was not the case. It just happened to be an actor that sounded an awful lot like Paul McGann. And we had to wait quite a few more years, 3 more. No, actually 2 more, just 2 more to see Paul McGann again. But
That's
sadly,
interesting. I did not catch that.
yeah,
The next time I watch the episode, I'll listen for that.
yeah,
And hear. I'm sure it does sound like him. It is I always think, and like most fans, be careful what you wish for. But I always think it would be cool for there to be another surviving Time Lord.
right.
And I guess maybe it's DC Comics ran into that, right? Where the last son of Krypton, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
then there was his
There you go.
cousin and the dog and the horse and the cat and the monkey.
The Phantom Zone criminals. You
Yes.
got Bottle City of Kandor.
Yeah.
And then, eventually when DC rebooted their universe the first time, during the events of Crisis on Infinite Earths, they kind of stripped all of that away. And so that Superman was only the sole surviving survivor of Krypton. But of course, all that stuff just crept right back in over
Yes,
the
it
years
has.
because
Absolutely.
so many people loved it.
Yes.
So,
So far, the powers that be and the Doctor Who have not given us another Time Lord or even Gallifreyan, though we have, with the big reveal, know that it is out there in
Yep.
another in a little pocket universe. Talk about DC universe, DC, right? Maybe one day we will get that.
I would hope so, because I would love to see Romana again.
Yes.
The Fourth Doctor's companion, who was a time lady, and
Hmm.
eventually, and through books and audio adventures, that we learn she ends up becoming like president of Gallifrey, and that's at some point. But yeah, it would be great. I would love to see her again, because all these people there are like, oh, a female doctor. We need a female doctor. How great would that be? But we had essentially a female doctor with Romana. So we could at the very least bring Romana back, so people can go, hey, isn't it cool to have a female character that's just as competent, even more so than the Doctor?
Totally agree. Totally agree.
So, without being River Song.
Yes.
So, at least.
Nothing against River Song.
Nothing against River
I
Song.
understand.
So as far as this episode goes, we are introduced to House, not Dr. Gregory House, MD. Do do do
Yes.
do. The House is this bodiless spirit that inhabits this junkyard planet, and we find out that he's responsible for luring TARDISes to this world so that he can feed on the TARDIS's Artron energy, which is this energy source that connects the Doctor with the TARDIS, and kind of it's almost like a symbiotic bond between the two. And House apparently feeds on this, but ends up learning that, oh, by the way, guess what? There are no more Time Lords. So I'm it. So if you consume me, that's it. You're done. So House has to come up with another plan, and he does later on.
Yeah, it is I thought it was really interesting where, they're like, please be comfortable. And, and it's, it's this junky planet. So of course they're not going to be comfortable. Yep. And it is very funny. The Doctor sends them back to the TARDIS thinking it'll be safe. Right. I left my screwdriver in my jacket. You're wearing your jacket. My other jacket.
Yeah, he deliberately tricks them.
Yes.
To protect them inside the TARDIS.
Right.
But guess what? That doesn't work.
No, it doesn't. No, turns aside.
Yeah, because House figures out a way inside, and with the soul of the TARDIS now residing in Idris, there's a nice little opening, and he worms his way in and takes over the TARDIS.
Yes.
So, and then immediately, disappear. The TARDIS dematerializes. So that, he takes off with Amy and Rory inside, but the Doctor is stranded behind with Auntie, Uncle, and Idris.
Yeah, and it's a great scene of the Doctor, just trying to open it, snapping his fingers, anything he can to try to get the TARDIS open, and it's not. So wonderful scene of him kind of abandoned and going from there, right?
Right. Now we did find out though before that the Doctor he was led by Auntie and Uncle to where all the there's other psychic containers, and he finds that Idris makes a comment earlier in the episode. She's like, the little boxes will make you sad. And we don't find it. We're not quite sure what she means at that point. But then later on, when the Doctor finds these psychic containers all over the place, or basically it's like a cabinet full of Rubik's cubes, and that just shows how many Time Lords fell victim to House's trap.
And one of the things that would have been cheesy in another writer's hands is the timey-wimey, part of this episode where, Idris as the TARDIS is saying what's going to happen, and like the point where, this is the point where you let me out, or, and I think not only was it great writing where, all the dots are connected, but the actress sold it so well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, while she's in the cell, she's like, oh, where's my thief?
Yeah.
Thief! She's calling for him, and, thief, as we kind of piece it together, that, she's referring to the fact that the Doctor stole her.
Yes.
So even though she says she stole him later on, which I think was kind of cute.
Yeah, I want to make sure we talk a little bit about that when we get to that point.
Right. Yeah, we will. Don't worry.
Okay.
The Doctor, I guess, like you said, frees Idris from her cell that she was locked up in after trying to bite him, and they talk. And the Doctor realizes that Idris's the TARDIS matrix has entered Idris, and they can actually talk to one another for the first time. And the doctor's just he's freaked out by this, but he's also very excited by the idea. It's just this idea that like this being, this artificial, well, not really, well, sort of artificial entity that he's cared about so much, and
Yeah.
it's like being able to, like, you have a really favorite car.
Yes.
And suddenly, maybe through whatever magical means, the spirit of the car is now in somebody else, and now you can talk to it.
Yeah.
So how trippy is that?
It is, and he's so excited, he's so interested, and it's. I think that is part of the magic of this. Is where they're heading out, and what we're gonna do, where we're gonna talk, and I just love that about it. And when he figures out that she's the TARDIS, you're the TARDIS? Yes, my TARDIS? And that's what it is, just so great.
That is. It's just it's a magical moment. Because it's like, first thing, you're like, what does he say? What do you say to this thing that you've loved for so long? And you're before, it was like something you could only, like, you'd see the doctor kind of caressing the control panel and being teased about it, like, oh, do you two want to be left alone, and it's kind of a joking way. And now he can actually do that. And Idris, in a really adorable moment, she decides, well, okay, my name's not Idris. It's actually the name you gave me.
Yes.
And that name is Sexy.
Yeah, a wonderful piece of dialogue. I'm sorry, do you have a name? 700 years, finally he asks.
Yep.
Well, what do I call you? I think you call me Sexy. And the doctor kind of sheepishly, only when we're alone.
See, again, with Matt's, like, kind of boyish, mischievous.
Yes.
That's what sells that scene, too.
It does. Absolutely.
The auntie and uncle, meanwhile, just kind of like abruptly die. And we find out that Idris only has a short time left before she dies as well. So there's our ticking clock.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the doctor, of course, is stranded with Idris, but, he's like, okay, this junkyard isn't just a junkyard, is it? No, it's a junkyard of TARDISes.
Yes.
So it's all these spare parts. So the doctor and Idris decide, okay, we're going to build a makeshift TARDIS and go after House.
Yeah, and once again, I love that when he goes, Valley of Half-Eaten TARDISes. You thinking what I'm thinking? In Idris, I'm thinking all my sisters are dead. They were devoured, and what we were looking at are their corpses.
Right.
Sorry. No, I wasn't thinking that.
That it's such a Neil Gaiman line.
Yes. No, you were thinking you could build a working TARDIS console out of broken remnants of 100 different models, and you don't care that it's impossible. And he goes, it's not impossible as long as we're alive, and we're going to build a TARDIS. I am a huge fan of the soundtrack and of these episodes. Murray Gold is amazing, but I Am the Doctor.
Yeah, playing at that moment
is
at that moment.
The score on this episode is just one of the things that makes it so, and I hate to say it, but perfect. It just catches your emotions. You get that feeling, we're going to build a TARDIS, it's, I don't care that it's impossible. Don't ever tell me the odds, No,
that was somebody else.
Okay, right.
Wrong, right genre, wrong person. So they start building a makeshift TARDIS. Meanwhile,
yes,
Amy and Rory are trapped in the TARDIS with House, which is not good. So in order to buy themselves some time before House just arbitrarily kills them, Rory says, "Oh yeah, well, you probably want to be entertained because that's your thing." So, like, because you seem like I had a PE teacher that was just like you, and Stephen Moffat must have an issue with PE teachers. Because
I was thinking the same thing. I'm also just laughing at, No, you don't want to kill us. You want to torture us. That's your plan?
That's his plan.
That's his plan? It
well,
worked.
it worked. It bought him some time. But yeah, they so, House is like, okay, well, if you want me to be entertained, go ahead and run. So they go running through those TARDIS corridors, and they start giving us our first real good look at the TARDIS interior that we haven't seen for decades. We haven't gotten to see this much of the TARDIS in decades.
Yeah, now, I guess corridors is something that in the classic Who they did a lot.
Yeah, that was
because it was easy sets, right?
Yeah, that would basically what they would the way they would make these sets to save money was that like they constructed them so that they could be rearranged very easily. So you had a lot of corridor chases, like through whatever, like say a space station or some kind of laboratory or some underground chamber, what have you.
Okay.
So that was, it was kind of a nod, and running through the TARDIS corridors is a nod to, running through corridors in the past, because it's kind of a classic Doctor Who trope.
Okay.
So back on the junkyard planet, Idris and the Doctor talk about, the Doctor's a little upset. They have a little, not really an argument, but more of a debate. The Doctor talks about how he gets a little miffed because, well, you didn't always take me where I wanted to go. And then Idris says the delightful line, "No, but I always took you where you needed to go."
There is
that sums up everything so perfectly.
It does, and it explains everything without changing anything.
Right.
There is so much there that why, because the Doctor's always trying to explain, well, there was the that's why we didn't get, but the reality is the TARDIS can see and knows, and just like in Quantum Leap, they sent Sam where he needed to right a wrong. The TARDIS knew where he needed to go.
Right.
And I joked about this in my Twitter. There may be tears. There is so much beauty in that the Doctor is able to share his frustration. You didn't always take me where I wanted to go. And just very quietly, in a lot of ways, this is almost spiritual.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to take it to that level where you think your life is supposed to take you somewhere else, and fate or higher power or whatever you want to believe in takes you where you needed to go. There is a purpose. And to sum that up, there is so many levels of that. And I think for all the beauty of this episode, if you just had that scene, I think this would make it one of the classic Who episodes and classic TV episodes of all times.
Right.
And so, yes, very, very special. And we almost should exclude that from our favorite line, because of course it is. It is kind of, my discretion. I talked a little bit about this, but when I did the Be the Boss, where you pick 5 Bruce Springsteen songs, me and a couple other friends have always said that you should not pick Thunder Road. You should not pick Born to Run. You should not pick some of these other, epic Springsteen songs, because the reality is everyone who's a Springsteen fan is going to say Thunder Road changed their life. So you don't need to say that. That goes without saying. So, of course, this is our favorite line, but that goes without saying. We're going to find something else.
Okay, so everyone at home, Jesse just worked Bruce Springsteen back into the conversation. Take a drink.
Absolutely. And Charles and I just did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. To quote the immortal Keanu Reeves, whoa.
Now, I don't know if you remember this, Charles.
Yes.
But I reached out to you after this episode came on.
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Hey, Charles, What
Hey,
does
Jesse.
what does a TARDIS look like when it's not stuck in the chameleon circuit?
Right.
And this is what made me think of that.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, Charles and I were not doing a podcast, but as we've established, he and I have been friends for a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
and he's always
He
been.
sounds so thrilled about it too, doesn't he?
I do. I am very blessed to have
It's
him.
been a very long time.
Yes.
The horror, the
And
horror.
he has always been him and Ken, my go-to Doctor Who experts. And so he and I had a wonderful discussion about that. That they really have not shown what a TARDIS looks like outside of it, but I'm guessing that all of them have a console.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily matter what the outside look like, because the console's what's important.
Mm.
And you'd always look at it a little different.
Yeah. Well, we kind of got a look at the TARDIS before it changes shape with the chameleon circuit.
Yeah.
We got to see that toward the end of the War Games, where the Second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe, are trying to escape the Time Lords, and like they start looking for like their TARDIS, and they come across some other TARDISes that are there, and so they kind of almost look like sort of like empty bookcases without shelves, because
Okay.
the doors slide out.
And is that the scene when
and
we
in the name of the Doctor,
where Claire
when Clara goes and like
and says,
kind
"No,
of
take this one."
take this one, yeah, exactly, kind
Okay.
of like that, yeah.
Okay, very nice. Yes.
So we
Okay.
kind of we've seen the pre-chameleon circuit TARDISes.
Very nice.
So let's see. So meanwhile, back with Amy and Rory, they're being chased, or they're running through the corridors. They get separated because House is a jerk and closes the doors between them, separating them. And then House starts playing serious mind games with Amy. She hallucinates Rory as an old man who scolds her for like abandoning him. It's been 2,000 years again. You left me again.
Yeah.
Referencing the fact of when he was, Rory the Roman, that he, the Auton Rory, stayed behind, like watched over her for 2,000 years, waiting for the Pandorica to open again.
Yeah. Yeah,
But,
that was very interesting. In fact, they had a lot of discussions of that where, we see Rory dead again.
Yeah. Yeah, because we get to see Rory dead again as a corpse.
Yes.
And then Amy's all like, no, no. And then Rory's like, Amy, yo, over here.
Right here. Right
behind you. Come on. Hello.
Absolutely.
So Idris and the Doctor, they get their makeshift TARDIS together. Idris, in another beautiful fantasy magical moment, activates it by just blowing her energy onto it, like she's like blowing out a candle, I guess, or something. And so they race off into the cosmos. They're just flying, literally almost by the seat of their pants, through the time-space continuum,
Mm-hmm.
chasing after House. She sends this telepathic message to Rory,
to the pretty one.
Yeah, because the Doctor says, well, like, oh, you mean, and Idris is all confused. She's like, oh, the pretty one?
Yeah.
And the Doctor says, yeah, the pretty one, thinking it's Amy.
Yes.
When in fact it's Rory, and like, Rory's the pretty one, really?
Yeah.
But she tells him the passcode to a secondary control room.
Yes.
And which ends up being just that Rory initially thinks is words, but it's the concept, the idea.
Right.
It's the passcode, and it comprises Crimson, the 11, Delight, and Petrichor, which is the smell that you get off of dust when rain hits it.
Yeah. I love the idea that the TARDIS backs itself up automatically. It is the thing. we also right before this happened, we had the debate of the TARDIS says that the TARDIS chose the Doctor,
Right.
and not the other way around.
Yes.
I wanted to see the universe, so I stole a Time Lord and I ran away, and
Right.
you were the only one mad enough.
Yep.
And I think goes back to you being the perfect marriage is they each think they chose the other.
Yes.
And the reality is, I think they were meant to be with each other. And yes, it is an absolutely brings tears to my eyes when the Doctor seems so defeated and Idris says, "Oh, my beautiful idiot, you have what you've always had. You've got me."
Right.
I teared up watching it. I'm starting to tear up as we watch because it is so beautiful.
The feels.
I know. This is a love story. This is an adventure story, but it truly is a love story of
Right.
the Doctor and his box.
Now I forgot to mention this, but I love the part earlier on before that, but where Idris scolds the Doctor. She chastises him a little bit for picking up strays.
Yes.
Which is a reference to his companions.
Right.
That she views them as all these strays he brings home, like stray cats or dogs or whatever. But
And it is
it's
so
adorable.
perfect. It is just exactly
Like, oh, you brought another one home. Great.
yes, exactly. So, yes.
Nice. So yeah, the Amy and Rory enter this secondary control room, which in a nice little fan geek moment, we find out, oh, guess what? It's the old choral desktop theme that Christopher Eccleston and David Tennant's eras. So we get to see, that Amy and Rory on aboard, this old school. Well, now it's old school TARDIS console room, and they're there to lower the TARDIS's shields because House has, been whatever reason he can't interfere with them doing that. So they lower the TARDIS's shields. Which allows Doctor and Idris to materialize their makeshift TARDIS inside that secondary control room, and in the process, they atomize poor nephew.
Yeah,
And
that is really timey-wimey
yeah,
and very much, wibbly wobbly but it is so wonderful. The double speech and there we are,
right. So it gets Idris back inside the TARDIS, which is very important. Now House is talking to them at this point, and the Doctor kind of tricks House into deleting that secondary control room, knowing that basically he explains it as like, okay, if you need the energy to get through this rift, you're going to have to delete rooms, which provides extra thrust for the TARDIS. Now, this is a reference to the story Castrovalva, Peter Davison's first story, where in order to break free of this trap of the Master, that the Tegan and Nyssa have to delete TARDIS rooms. So
okay,
so it's something that's been previously established, and Neil, as a fan, obviously knows this.
And they talked about that at the very beginning of this episode, where to get to the other, universe, he talked about getting rid of the swimming pool,
right,
and the squash court or something else. Yes, so
so it's just apparently, if you delete rooms, you can give yourself a little extra momentum.
Yeah, less weight to carry, even though the TARDIS is actually larger than Earth, I guess, in reality.
I guess it has rooms to burn.
I guess so.
They never seem to be run out of rooms, even if with all these deleting rooms. So I guess it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
The TARDIS safety protocols, meanwhile, because of House deleting these rooms, automatically transfers everybody to the main control room as a safety measure, so you don't delete people, which would be really, really awkward.
Right.
Like, whoops, I'm sorry, I was deleting rooms and then deleted people by mistake. My bad.
Absolutely. That's a very realistic safeguard.
And thankfully it works.
Yes.
as opposed to malfunctions, because that would have been really bad.
Yes.
So Idris, now that she's back inside the main control room, she leaves the Matrix leaves Idris's body and re-enters the TARDIS, kicks House out.
Yes.
And which destroys him. He's done.
And another great scene of the Doctor taunting House in a way, but where he says, "Look at my girl, look at her go," and the great special effects and
it's almost like
beautiful music. Yes,
that swirling energy works just beautifully with the music, and it's a very epic scene.
Size of a planet, but inside you are just so small. Yes.
So there's like a remnant of the Matrix still left in Idris, though.
Yes.
And she tells the Doctor, like, well, this is it. We're not going to be able to speak to each other again. And it's a very tear-jerky moment. I'm sure it's like, break out the tissue box because you're like, oh, I don't want you to die. Yes, you're going to die. Exactly. And the Doctor's all upset. Doctor's crying. Doctor which is we don't see very often at all.
No.
And Idris's final words to the Doctor, she says, hello.
Yes.
Like, I've wanted to meet you, and how lovely to meet you. And it's just very, very touching.
Yes. And I love that this will be the time when we talked. This will be known. And it is really, really sad. And even though the TARDIS is alive, there is something, and I think once again that actress's performance is part of the reason why it works. And Neil's words that you do feel like you're losing a character.
Right.
And it's just wonderful.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Now, before Idris died, though, she did tell Rory something.
Yes.
She mentioned that these, little, ominous words that the only water in the forest is the river.
Yes.
Which is, like Idris code for, oh, by the way, River Song's your daughter.
Yes. Yes.
That we find out later in a Good Man Goes to War.
Right.
But at the time, they were like, well, I don't know what she meant. It was weird,
Yeah.
She was, she was a bitey mad lady. What did we, we just kind of shrug it off. Amy and Rory go off to find a new bedroom, which is because their old one's been deleted. Yes. This time without bunk beds.
Yes.
And the Doctor's kind of bummed about that. Like, how do you not want to bed with bunk beds? Bunk beds are cool. It's a bed with a ladder.
Yes.
How cool is that?
Yes.
And only Matt's Doctor could really sell that off.
Absolutely.
Or sell that line. So while they're off doing that, the Doctor and then talks to the TARDIS once again, but sadly she's not really saying anything.
No.
He doesn't expect her to.
Right.
But however, there's like one of the nearby levers is thrown automatically.
Yes.
Moves on its own, and it just brings a smile to the Doctor's face, and they go off to new adventures. And it's just a perfect ending to the story.
Absolutely. Just absolutely magical. And there's so much, as we've talked about it, and I know we're gushing, but the reality is there is just sometimes magic happens. And when you have the writing, the direction, the acting, the score, it just all works, and it is just something that is a modern day classic.
I think so.
Absolutely. So, Charles, do you have a line that we have not already mentioned?
See, now you're being tricky. Okay, well, we obviously can't use the you didn't always take me where I needed to go. Blah blah blah.
Right.
Okay. I've actually have two.
Okay.
One of them is, did you ever wonder why I chose you all those years ago? And the Doctor replies, I chose you. You were unlocked. And Idris replies, of course I was. I wanted to see the universe, so I stole a Time Lord and ran away. And you were the only one mad enough.
Yeah, I love that one. So, yes. And your other one?
My other one is, the Doctor is explaining Idris to Amy and Rory, and he's going, like, and she's a woman. She's a woman, and she's the TARDIS. And then Amy kind of arches her eyebrow and looks at him and is like, "Did you wish really hard?"
Yes, that was one of the lines that I had down.
I just laughed and laughed.
I specifically did not mention it so that one of us could have it. I
got it.
Yes, I have two.
Yeah.
That yeah, we talked about. The first one is Amy when Roy says he's going to be fine. He's a Time Lord. And she goes, it's just what they're called. It doesn't mean he actually knows what he's doing.
Yep.
And then to tie into that,
so Amy.
It is so Amy when the TARDIS is gone. The Doctor goes, okay, right. I really don't know what to do. And then all of a sudden he just smiles. He goes, that's a new feeling. I mean, the Doctor
he's excited by that because of he's lived so long, he's done all these things to death. Yes. So when he gets to do something new, he's excited by it.
Yeah, he truly is someone who's enjoying the journey,
right.
And he is confident that he'll figure it out. But just for that half a second, he's going to stop and enjoy the idea that he doesn't know what to do.
Right.
So yes, very, very wonderful.
So is there a point to asking you what you rated this episode?
The only suspense should be what is the shtick we're going to use. I am giving this 10 bunk beds out of 10.
Nice.
Yes.
I give this one 10 out of 10 psychic containers.
Very nice. It is.
So that's a 210.
Yeah, it is very rare. I give it 10 just because I think a 10 is, should be rare. You don't want to dilute the thing. And this is just amazing. So really, really wonderful. So Charles, do you have a recommendation for reverse the polarity?
Oddly enough, I do.
Okay.
Now, it's not going to be exact because this is a very unique and special episode.
Right.
So I struggle a little bit, but now I want to go back to we're going to reverse the polarity back to 1978.
Okay.
Season 15 of the original series, The Invasion of Time.
Okay.
Written by David Agnew, which was a pseudonym for Graham Williams and Anthony Reed. This is a Fourth Doctor, Leela, and K9 story.
Okay.
Where the Doctor, he returns to Gallifrey to claim this vacant presidency of Gallifrey. And as part of this plan to deal with this invasion that later turns into a revelation that the Centaurans are invading Gallifrey. Now, later in the story, the Centaurans, assisted by one of the Time Lords, I won't spoil which one, of the high-ranking Time Lords, gain access to the Doctor's TARDIS. And then this is where it kind of ties in with the Doctor's wife a little bit, because they go hunting for the Doctor and his friends down the TARDIS's labyrinthine corridors. So we've got so my connection with the Doctor's wife is that going through all this is the first time we really got to go through the TARDIS corridors, and we got to see the swimming pool for the first time.
Nice.
So and all kinds of stuff. So it was kind of a big deal. I mean, some of it, most of the back then, to save money, they just filmed at some swimming pool somewhere and said, "Oh yeah, that's where that's the TARDIS swimming pool." But so we get that. It's also Leela and K9's last story, at least K9 Mark 1.
Okay.
Because they stay behind in Gallifrey. Leela ends up falling in love with the commander of the Chancellery Guard, which is their cops, or their Royal Guard. So she falls in love with Andred, this commander. So she stays behind. K9 stays behind with her to kind of just watch over her. but the Doctor later, in a nod and a wink to the audience, pulls out a box which contains Canine Mark II. So Canine
Very nice.
gets to stay on the TARDIS, but also stay with Leela. So,
Oh,
but yeah, that's my recommendation.
okay.
It's a really good story, really cool. Lots going on, stuff with Gallifrey, so you can't go wrong there. So there's another connection.
Okay.
And we got Time Lords, so there's that. So I hope you guys dig it.
Very nice. So Charles went to a baseball game today, and
got,
he is
got a little
sunburned. Yes.
Got a little quick,
Uh,
but I'm okay.
yeah, I went to Who Fest DFW 2015. It is a smaller convention. This is the second year they've had it here in the Dallas area. There was Colin Baker attended, and Nicola Bryant, and other people that I should know, but I didn't pull up before we talked. But yes,
Shakes fist.
yes. And so I got to attend a couple panels. Colin Baker talked about the Five-ish Doctors, that how much he, they filmed it, and he kind of originally, and most people know this, is he knew that there was no way they'd be involved in the 50th anniversary because they don't look the same.
Right.
He said it would be a really hard job to write them in, and so he respected that, but they did feel like they wanted to do something, and he gave Peter Davison all the credit. He said Peter wrote almost everything. He says a few things that we gave him, but he said 99% of it is him. And he says, I watched it a second time after it came out, and he says, and I find myself watching it on a regular basis because it still makes him laugh. He says it makes me laugh. And
right.
Someone asked, would he do another one? And he said, in a minute, our concern is it would have to be just as good. We wouldn't want to take it down, but he absolutely loved doing it. And he says it truly was for the fans. So that was nice to see. He talked about, someone asked him about his favorite villain, and the Valeyard from Trial of the Time Lord.
Yep.
He said because of what might be happening soon, but I can't see anything else.
Ooh.
So people from Big Finish were there, and so we'll take that as a hint that maybe they're going to do something going forward with that.
No, they did. No, Big Finish. I don't mean to interrupt, but they did do a story called Trial of the Valeyard.
Okay.
A few years back, it was one of those little bonus discs that if you got like a subscribed for a year or whatever to the monthly range, that you got this as a bonus.
Okay.
It's a really cool story.
Okay.
That has like Colin's Doctor meeting up with the Valeyard again, and the Inquisitor played by Linda Bellingham. And it kind of explains a little bit, or at least like it hints at who the Valeyard really is.
Okay.
And I won't spoil it, but it's a pretty good story.
So it's good checking out. Okay, we'll have to look at that.
I'd say so.
Yeah. There was a segment on the Big Finish, and they told a wonderful story that during the dark years when there was no Doctor Who, and
the dark times.
Yes, the people thought there would never be Doctor Who back on TV. And I remember that from a Star Trek perspective, so I know that emotion that we, back in the day, the only thing we thought we would have syndication, and that's it, that the novelizations and the Star Trek, books were all we would ever get. And so they told the story that because Colin Baker decided to do a more complex character, that he was ranked out of the 7 original Doctors as the least favorite. 1 through 7, he was number 7.
Right.
And they said that after Big Finish started putting out some of the audio dramas, that a year after they had started, that he ranked number 1. Now, they said we're not going to take all credit for that. It was also Colin is a great ex-Doctor. He is
Right.
wonderful in conventions. He is friendly. He loves his time as the Doctor. He is funny and warm and just loves it. And so that was part of it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Nicola Bryant is still very beautiful.
Yes, she is.
Very charming. So, for those of you who follow us along, I have a Doctor Who sketchbook. And so I found an artist there, and they did a wonderful watercolor of Nicola Bryant as Perry. And then I had her, Nicola, sign it. So I'll post that on our Facebook page. That was a very nice addition to my sketch book. I'm very happy.
And was she nice to you? Was
Yes,
she
very nice, very sweet. Very fun. Passed out a lot of cards, talking about our podcast.
Cool.
Visited a few people. There was a DFW Doctor Who cosplay organization.
Right.
If you can't get any more specific than that, not just cosplays, but Gallifrey cosplaying.
Yeah.
I've got pictures of that too, and I gave a couple of cards to them saying that during this off season, if a couple of them wanted to join us and we could talk about cosplaying and attending conventions, we think that would be kind of fun.
That would be. Are you gonna post some photos from the convention on our Facebook page?
Yes, I will. So look for
right.
those soon. Good. So what are we talking about next week, Charles?
Well, now that I guess you finally decided on what we're going to listen to,
Exactly.
we're gonna take a little break from the television series, and we're gonna go into all these, or at least for a little while, we're gonna talk about these Big Finish audio adventures that we adore so much. At least I do. Jesse hasn't really listened to any of them yet.
Yes.
To my knowledge.
I have not, and so I'm really looking forward to kind of seeing how this does.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start with The Sirens of Time, which is the very first Doctor Who Big Finish audio adventure, which features the return of Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy as the fifth, sixth, and seventh Doctors, and where they get to kind of team up together for the first time. Certainly in a more traditional setting than the Five-ish Doctors reboot, which happened many years later.
Yeah.
Now, because this is the first Big Finish audio, it's not as polished as the later productions, like a few years down the road. But I'm curious to see what Jesse thinks of it, and if nothing else, it's fun because you get to finally see 5, 6, and 7 joining forces.
And if you go to bigfinish.com, do a search for the Sirens of Time, it is only $2.99, a special download price. So if any of our listeners have not heard it and they want to listen to it, we get no money from this. I'm just throwing it out there that it isn't a lot of money to bring it down. You can listen to it. And
that's at bigfinish.com, right?
Yes, it is bigfinish.com. And I just did a Google search, Sirens of Time, Big Finish, and it came up right away. Yeah. So check it out. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. We're going to do a couple more of these. I also want to talk about some of the, some of the comic books, maybe a couple of the stories that were from the 50th anniversary, the little bitty stories. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we'll continue to move forward, counting the days till the new season comes out.
Yeah, the show for Series 9 is already filming right now, so it's not. I mean, it's just got to be a little more patient. We got to just get through the rest of spring and summer, and then Doctor Who will be back. So
absolutely.
So in the meantime, we'll have fun going down memory lane.
Absolutely.
And I hope everybody out there enjoys it.
Absolutely. Charles, where can we find you?
Well, you can find me here. No, I'm at Charles Skaggs on Twitter. I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Google Plus for all you crazy kids on the Google Plus. Shout out to Karen.
Yeah.
And my blog of geeky things, Damn Good Coffee and Hot, where I talk about things like Doctor Who and comic books and sci-fi, You name it. If it's cool and I think it's cool, and I'm pretty sure if you think it's cool, I talk about it. So I hope you'll check it out and have fun with it.
Very nice. I can be found at JWJ170104. We do have a Facebook page, Next Stop Everywhere. I will be posting some photos, including a photo of the sketch I had done with her signature. And we thank you for listening. Go to iTunes, rate us, review us.
We need some new reviews, so please let us know what you think, and also check us out on Twitter at Next Stop SMG.
Absolutely.
On Twitter, because we can definitely use some more followers there too. So
yes,
support the cause.
Absolutely. The more the merrier. So thank you, Charles. As always, this is a fun way. For those of you who don't know, a little inside baseball. Charles and I have gotten to the habit of recording Sunday afternoons, early evenings. So it's kind of our prologue to Walking Dead / Game of Thrones / whatever thing we're watching.
Mad Men.
It is a really wonderful kind of way to end the weekend talking Doctor Who with you, Charles. So
and I enjoyed every time. I know you're going to be busy next week. Don't you have another Doctor Who convention?
So I am at Comic Palooza Memorial Day weekend, and then the weekend after that is the Dallas Expo, which has a pretty big cast. Speaking of, I'm trying to get our friend Devin back on the show to talk about it. Okay. They have a lot of Doctor Who guests coming on this one, and I am going to interview at Comic Palooza Strax. So yes, I am
Dan Starkey.
Dan Starkey. So I figure that's going to be a lot of fun.
He seems like he would be a great interview.
Absolutely. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. And for now, keep hope alive. And remember, you must travel with understanding as well as hope. Thanks, everyone. Good. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.